Okay, I've had the iPhone 10 for a few months now, and having handed over an arm, a leg, and most of my other arm to be able to afford it, and having upgraded it from my iPhone 7 Plus, what do I think about it? Now, there's plenty of reviews on YouTube, of course, of the iPhone 10. And a lot of them were done when the device first came out, and what I like to consider is, longer term, what's the experience been with the iPhone 10, or what's the experience been with any device. And with the iPhone 10, very mixed feelings. As far as the actual design of the phone is concerned, the glass back, the stainless steel band, and all of that good stuff, well, it's Apple. You can't fault the build quality. You can see on mine I've actually got the leather case, which makes it nice to hold and is, pretty much protecting it all the way around. I mean, you drop this thing and, you're in big trouble. The actual cost of repairing the glass back, I've heard some absolute horror stories, so I always put a case on my phones, hardened tempered glass screen protector, da-dee-da-dee-da, and all the rest of it. I'm not going to go through showing you how it worked, all the rest of things. I just want to talk about it a little bit. My experience is that, obviously the big change, as far as I'm concerned, is moving from the Touch ID button. There's no button on this, obviously, and moving over to Face ID. Face ID is okay. It's not as efficient as the button, the Touch ID button, because with the Touch ID you could just press it like that and it will go straight to the home screen. Job done. With this, you have to look at it. It unlocks, then you have to swipe up from the bottom to get to your home screen, which is ridiculous. It's convoluted, it's inefficient, it's time consuming, and it's just downright annoying. And then there's the other swipe gestures where you sort of bring it up from the bottom and hold to get into multitasking, and then you hold one of the apps that's been shown on the multitasking list, and then you get, as you hold it, it'll bring up the minus button so that you can actually close that particular application down. Pretty much everything else the same as one would expect on iOS, and I just find the whole touch experience and the Face ID experience annoying. Completely annoying. I just don't. I think the problem is it's inefficient. I don't think Face ID on its own is a bad thing. I think it's very, very good in terms of security. It seems to be very stable. It works in the conditions that it requires to work, and it works in those conditions flawlessly. And that is having the phone absolutely. Whoops! I'm about to drop my camera. Have the actual phone face on straight away. You've got to have it facing you completely. You can see it's there flat on the table. If I was to go Face ID now, it wouldn't work at all. So let's try and wake it up. Face ID, no. Let's get this out of the way. It just doesn't want to work. Try again. No, it doesn't want to know. It's got to be facing you, whereas if it was the iPhone 7 Plus in my case, I could just hold the button there and it would just open up, no problems. So there you go. Face ID isn't working because it's flat on the table, and at work I've got this down the side. I've got my keyboard here from PC and all the rest of it, and I just want to look at something, just hold the button. Or if it was on the 7 Plus like that, the thing would open up, no problems, and there you go. Now this, I've got to pick the phone up, I've then got to look at it, and da-de-da-de-da, and most of the time I just end up defaulting to the PIN code to open it up. Face ID is a great idea, but it's ineffective. In terms of the power of the phone is great, no problems at all. Obviously it's a very powerful phone, and it'll do anything. Anything that you can chuck at it, it'll handle. As I say, the design of it is fine. All the buttons work, and you've still got the mute switch at the side. It's pretty much the same as any other iPhone. If you've got an iPhone 7 Plus and you think you're going up to the iPhone 10, I wouldn't bother. I wish I hadn't bothered, frankly. I do regret it. So I just know that Apple's going to be bringing out a Plus version of the iPhone 10, bigger screen. The screen aspect ratio is great. I don't mind that at all. And the actual size of it in terms of width compared to the iPhone 10 is really, really nice. So that's great. None of these are enough reasons to do an upgrade. If you've got an iPhone 7 Plus, stick with it. Do an upgrade to an iPhone 10 later on in the year, perhaps an iPhone 10 Plus, because that's likely to come out, in my view. But if you've got an iPhone 7, forget it. If you've got an iPhone 6S, then yeah, that's a different matter. You might want to go up to the iPhone 10. But even then, the 6S was a great phone. Sorry, 6S Plus, really, I'm thinking of mainly. Or if you've got into a 6S, definitely it's a worthwhile upgrade. But certainly if you've got an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus, I wouldn't bother. What else? I mean, I think that's basically it, really. If you actually, if you actually strip out the fact that, okay, the camera is fantastic, but then it was fantastic on my iPhone 7 Plus, frankly. I don't really think I've had a bad camera on an iPhone. Okay, certainly the quality of the pictures and the handling of low light, for example, is much better on the later phones, and certainly on the iPhone 10. Really nice, no problems at all. It's got the old dual camera set up, and you got things. I think it's the Pixel 2's only got one camera, and that camera is absolutely fantastic. Probably better than this one, I don't know. But if you look at the main bloggers of the iPhone 10, like MKBHD and Mr. Who's the Boss and all the rest of them, they seem to like the Pixel 2, and I don't blame them personally. I'm stuck in the world of iOS. From my personal point of view, I think that Apple's devices are a lot more stable and a lot more secure. They're going to be updated and supported by Apple a lot longer than the average Android device, and it's those sorts of reasons that I stick with Apple. Although I covet Android devices. I mean, you look at the Samsung S8 and the S8 Plus and the Galaxy Note 8. They're fantastic phones, and I just wish that Apple would be just a little bit more inventive and a little bit more daring, like companies such as Samsung are. But they're much more reserved and conservative, and the great thing about Apple is that they will not release a piece of technology unless it's as perfect as they can possibly get, and Face ID is their major latest piece of innovation, and it does work extremely well, provided you hold the phone right in front of your face, not flat on the table. It will work flawlessly, absolutely no trouble about it. But then you've got to swipe up and you've got to do these other stupid gestures because you've lost the home button, and that annoys me. It's not necessary. It's inefficient implementation of the hardware and the software to support Face ID, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope that Apple listen to its users and updates the software at some future point to make the phone more useful. What I want to see above all else with Face ID is I just look at the phone, it unlocks and goes straight to the home screen. That's what I want. I don't want this constantly flicking up from the bottom for this, that and the other, for the better way of opening up multitasking. Nonsense like if I want to download an app from the App Store, I've got to double click the power button for some reason for it to download. It checks me out on Face ID. Well, that's enough, isn't it? Why do I have to double click that button to download it? I don't get it. It's just apocalyptically stupid implementation. Nothing wrong with the hardware. Hardware is gorgeous. It's Apple. It's going to be gorgeous. But do you know what? When it comes to some software decisions, Apple can be apocalyptically stupid. And I think they've got too many people in Cupertino who think they know best, and they don't listen to the users. And if there's one company that does listen to the users normally, it is Apple. But again, I think they are tending to go down the line of creating technology that people didn't realise they wanted or needed, and they don't actually necessarily want or need it when that technology is brought out. Touch ID was brilliant. Face ID is okay, and that's a big difference in my view. As far as the phone itself is concerned, as a complete package, it's a gorgeous iPhone. I do enjoy using it when I don't have to use Face ID. I like the aspect ratio. I like the size of the phone. In fact, going up to an iPhone 10 Plus, if such a beast ever comes out, which I rather suspect it will do, I might think twice about it, because one assumes it's going to be wider. And one of the nice things about going from the 7 Plus to this device is that this device is not as wide. Incidentally, battery life is not as good as a 7 Plus, but it's not far off. So if you're worried about going from a plus-size device down to this one with regard to battery life, I wouldn't get too worried about that at all. The battery life is pretty good in the iPhone 10. No problems with that at all. There you go. That's my £2 worth. Great phone. Stupid implementation of Face ID, and stupid swiping gestures that haven't been thought through, and I think it's going to piss off a lot of people when they move from the Touch ID to Face ID, and I suspect that Face ID is the future, and that we won't be seeing any more buttons in the same way as we won't be seeing the headphone jack again. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. It's just